Due to the graphic nature of today's program, this program is not recommended for children. It's for a mature audience. And I've been talking with Gianna Jessen, and she's been sharing about how her mom had a saline abortion. But to everyone's surprise, Gianna lived. And she's here to share the rest of her story with us about what God has done in her life. Well, tell me this, getting back to, when you were first born and they tried to abort you, and it didn't work. What did the doctors think when you still lived?
Well, thank goodness, when I was delivered alive in the abortion clinic, the abortionist was not on duty yet. Because had he been at work, because it was 6 o'clock in the morning, had he been at work, he would have ended my life by strangulation, suffocation, or leaving me there to die.
I had heard stories like that, so I wondered, by the grace of God.
Yeah, which was considered perfectly legal up until August 5th, 2002, when, my extraordinary President Bush signed into law the Born Alive Infants Protection Act.
Yes, he did.
A nurse called an ambulance and had me transferred to a hospital. And so, in essence, that nurse saved my life. And wow. I weighed 2 pounds, and they said, this baby is not going to live. I mean, then I didn't die. So
God had other plans.
Yeah. After a while, they said, this baby girl has a tremendous will to live. And so then I was placed eventually in an emergency foster care home, not treated very well there, so I was placed in another wonderful home by a home of a woman by the name of Penny, who took me in. And so by this time, I'm 17 months old, 32 pounds of dead weight, diagnosed with cerebral palsy from the lack of oxygen to my brain, surviving the abortion, and unable to move.
Oh, bless your heart.
And so Penny took me in, and she said she just loved me immediately. And it was about time. I needed someone to really love me.
Yes.
And she did my physical therapy 3 times a day in spite of the doctors saying that I would never be anything more than a vegetable. And there are 2 decisions that I've made in my life that have transformed the whole thing and get me through the darkest days. And number 1 is my decision for Christ, and really a decision for Christ. I am his girl. Mm-hmm. And number 2, I'm not a victim. And I think one of the most frightening things that I see in our culture, and in fact worldwide, is this victim mentality being cultivated. And that never leads to personal freedom or national freedom. It leads to tyranny. And I don't believe in giving up.
You're a good example of that, that's for sure. Your life has been a living testimony. And so your mom, now, was your mom married, the one who adopted you? Was she married? Did you have a father as well that adopted you? Or was she a single mom?
I was adopted by Penny's daughter, which makes my foster mother now my grandmother, who is now 87, who has cared for a total of 56 children as a single woman.
Wow, God bless her.
Yeah, all considered unadoptable. She took all the disabled, drug-addicted from the womb. I mean, you name it, she took them in. And I was one of those children. I was adopted by her daughter, who was married. I was adopted at 3.5. But it was a really difficult adoption, and I don't go into all the details just because they're not necessary, and also because I'm not a victim. But really, Penny is the one, my grandmother, who sort of, for lack of a better way to put it, gave me the wings to fly. Mm-hmm. Just really believes in me to this day. And we all need someone like that. And I really have not had a father at all. So I rely heavily on Jesus and know that he really adores me.
That's right. Our Heavenly Father, yes, absolutely. He adores you and loves you. And Jesus gave his life for you. That's how much he loves you. So how did you become a Christian? When did that happen?
Well, they tell me I got on my knees the first time at the age of 4. And I am a singer, although I have horrible allergies today, but I'm a singer. And I knew that I needed someone to sing to, and I knew I needed someone to help me walk and frankly just function in life. And my adoptive mother had told me about Jesus, and I thought, he's it. I mean, I don't know much more. I just know that he's it. And I'm sure I wasn't having all these thoughts at 4, but they told me that I got on my knees the first time at that age. And then I had a tremendous fear of abandonment. And so I remember at 9, sitting on my bed, and I had been taught about the return of Christ and all of that, and I was convinced that if Christ were to return, that he might just leave me behind. And I remember saying, God, please make this thing final, because I don't want you to leave me.
Yeah.
And of course, I was already his and am his, but it tells you just kind of where I was coming from and where I have been, to have such a tremendous fear of being forgotten.
Well, sure, you were almost killed, murdered when you were being born, and you were taken from one family to another for a while, foster parents, and
Yep.
I could see where you would have that fear.
Yep.
And God conquered that fear for you?
I have a really good Christian therapist.
Well, that's good.
So we still work on things, definitely. I mean, just to have overcome so much, you're bound to have to work on things and learn who you really are, and who God really is and what he isn't. Because I have been persecuted in one way or another since my conception. I mean, the enemy has not been happy that I am alive.
And look how God's using you. That's why he's not happy, but too bad for him. God is there. God is your provider and your protector, and he is going to continue to use you in a mighty way. Look, he's using you right now, and God at work. That's right. You just don't know whose lives that you're touching right now, but God knows, and he's using it. He never wastes things that he gives us to do and the things that we share about him and what he's done. He doesn't waste that because he wants to encourage others and also show that a child in the womb is a life. It's a living being that God has created, that he knew even before we were in our mother's womb.
I was just going to speak to maybe the woman or young man listening that they're in a crisis pregnancy situation. There are crisis pregnancy centers in basically every town or right nearby. And, I don't know if you mind, but there is that a hotline to call. And
no, I don't mind.
Yeah, it's called 1-800-395-HELP. And all of their services are free and confidential. I do a ton of work on behalf of these centers. And, with young girls, they'll even go with those young girls to help tell the parents. The child is so afraid to tell her parents she's pregnant, and they'll go with her and help her to tell them. And, just beautiful ministries of grace. And just wanted to throw that in there.
Well, that's important, sure. And that number again is 1-800-395-HELP? 1-800-395-HELP. Gianna, thank you so much. You've been quite an inspiration, and you're getting better from your blessing, as you call it, and you're able to walk better than you used to, and God has really brought you a long ways.
If I may, people can find out more on YouTube, and my website is GiannaJessen.com, and I'm also all over Facebook and Twitter.
Great. That was gonna be my next question, so thank you for sharing that. So it's GiannaJessen.com.
Yep, and we're in the process of revamping the website, so be patient, but you can still find us there, and like I said, on the social networking sites as well.
Great. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for allowing the Lord to use you and your testimony to help save babies and lives.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. God bless you, dear. You're listening to God at Work on WMPQ The Light, 95.9.